so half job is done. Thank you for taking pictures. I'm going to sit here literally for 10 seconds so you can take the pictures. I appreciate that. But I'm so afraid I'm going to fall down on this, so let me move down. I would like to start by appreciating the amount of effort and energy and emotions that you guys put into this work. Today, it's really all about you. I'm just here to pass the time so they can count the votes. But allow me to give you a very, very warm hand of applause. You did a really great job. And I hope that I'm going to be able to talk to you today a little bit about what were some of your fundamental or hallmark moments in your career as an entrepreneur. And you tell me how wrong I am, okay? All right, so I was born in Transylvania. A lot of people ask me if I'm from Thailand. I'm not. I'm from Malaysia. I studied in Switzerland. I spent a lot of time teaching in United States, in India, in Italy. Now I'm in Malaysia. And I have a background in hospitality, in fashion, and in technology. For those of you who are good enough to do, you know that there's those who can do and those who cannot do, they teach. So I pivoted and my career took a... Am I doing this? Is there something in my mic that makes so much noise? All right. Okay, thank you. And but I'm very, very proud to say that today I'm part of a startup. It happens to be $1 billion startup, but it's very much a startup. It's a startup started by MIT Sloan and the Central Bank of Malaysia. The main function of a bank is to generate growth. I'm going to let you fill the blanks, sir. But Asia School of Business was actually created with this vision in mind to build a school that develops transformative and principled market leaders. And I was actually the first hire of the school. So when you ask me what's my job, everything you can imagine. How many of you are the first 3 hires in the company? Okay, founders. You're a founder, I saw you, right? Okay, so you know what that's like. So I would like to take you today on a journey. So relax and enjoy this ride. And I would like to take you on a journey that is going to start from the deep jungles of any country you want in Southeast Asia. This is much easier to do in Asia than it was in Boston because I always had a very hard time getting people to relate to a jungle. But we're going to start in a jungle, and then I'm going to take you hiking up on a mountain, and then we're going to end up in a beautiful ocean, again, maybe somewhere in our parts of the world. So for the past almost 5 years, together with Professor Charles Fine from MIT Sloan and the president of Asia School of Business, we've been trying to understand how do companies evolve? How do they grow? How do they turn from tiny little babies, almost, barely trying to make it, like some of you were a few years ago, to sustainable scaling companies? And then how do these companies like yours later on develop into this gigantic industrial ships, right? So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this journey. So I would like everybody to go back in time to a moment when you went through a jungle, when you had a trekking jungle experience. How many of you have ever been in the jungle before? I've been once in a jungle for the purpose of this research, so we call that primary data. So for those of you who've been in the jungle before, and for those of you who have not, try to imagine now that when you go through the jungle, there's very little clarity ahead of you, right? There's no path. And even if there's a path, because the jungle is such a dynamic environment, the next day that path is gone, right? And also, I want you to think about how far ahead can you see in the jungle? Not very far, right? And what are some of the tools, Pim, that you have when you go through the jungle? Maybe a compass, but even the compass sometimes is not helpful because, right? The sun helps. A machete. Have you seen a machete? I've seen one in a movie. But think about the level of sophistication of a machete. I don't think a machete would go through the innovation challenge with MIT, right? In terms of how much technology and innovation we brought, right? But if you think about it, the tools that a startup, a very, very early stage startup has, are very similar to machetes, right? So the goal of going through the jungle as a metaphor for the first stage of startups is to figure things out, right? When you all started your companies, did you know exactly you're gonna be here today at this stage in your business plan? Oh, let there be light. Thank you. So your goal is to figure it out, and then physically when you're in the jungle, your goal is to get out of the jungle as fast as possible, right? Because you don't want to stay too long in a very early stage startup where every day it's a function of fighting for survival, right? And do you know, I've been told, what's the most dangerous animal in the jungle? The mosquito. Because once you see the tiger, you can actually try and run, but you don't see mosquitoes, right? So today, again, to the entrepreneurs, because you are the VIPs of today, not these people. Sorry, sir, only I'm sure that you're a VIP. But I want to ask you, how many friends do you have that had a similar idea to yours, or they had a business idea, and they didn't make it because of a tiny mosquito, right? They made the wrong investment, or they took the wrong direction, or they betted on the wrong horse. This is what the jungle looks very much like, right? It's the story of Bill Olette's Disciplined Entrepreneurship. It's the story of Lean Startup. It's the story of the business model canvas. These are the kind of frameworks that are very helpful for an early stage entrepreneur. So what do you need? You need a small team of people who are just as adventurous as you are, just as courageous as you are, just as determined to make it as you are, and who are not confused by the fact that I do not have a clear direction, right? I am sure that when Jai started his company, he had a vision, right, which is the sun. I think Pai said that you see the sun. That's the vision, but you don't have a clear path. There's no map. You just know that you have to figure it out. So the rule of the jungle is get out there fast. So if you want to transfer that into startup knowledge or startup terms, is fast prototyping, fast testing, right? Fast bringing to the market, and then figure it out. It's not going to be perfect. Have you ever had a startup product in your life? It's not perfect. It's there, right? But it's not perfect. Oh, sorry. I also want you to think a little bit about leadership and the staff. Like, what's the organigram of a startup? When we first started ASB, we were 2 hires, myself and the president. Our sponsor said, can we see the organizational structure of your company? I'm like, you're looking at it. Well, can you project the organizational structure for the next year? No. Why? Who needs it, right? Who do you need to hire? People who are going to do the job, right? And what's their title? Who cares, exactly? Who cares? What am I going to care about? What the title is? So this is a little bit what it looks like, right? Everybody's doing everything. You see a problem, you own a problem, right? People don't fight over problems because there's so many to solve, right? People don't want titles. What am I? Chief Innovation Officer. And also I set up printers, and also I have to buy coffee, and also I have to go and negotiate for a deal, and also I have to clean the space at the end of the day because we don't have a cleaner, right? But hey, I am the Chief Innovation Officer. And also, I want to go back for a second. I want you to think a little bit of kind of leader do you need to have in an early stage startup, in a jungle, right? The kind of leader that you need in this, that's one of our bosses, by the way. We also have female in the company. Actually, we're 65% women, so I put this just because the men feel highly, highly underrepresented at ASB. So I thought, for once, let's give the men what they deserve, a place on the presentation, right? But if you think about the kind of leader that you have to be, what's your name? Sebastian, right? So Sebastian, you're the founder of the company, right? And you are? Tamanda. And how long in the company did you join? 6 months into the company, right? So Sebastian had to have a very great influence in hiring you and the other way around, right? Because if you're not inspired by your leader in the jungle, if you do not believe that that leader is going to get me out of the jungle successfully and is going to try to kill all the mosquitoes on the way, you're not going to join the company, right? Who had the benefits? The company with the all right. Am I going to join a startup because of the benefits?
No.
What are the benefits of a startup? We're going to have fun, right? We're going to have fun, people. We're going to work 24/7 a day. What's the retirement plan in a startup? Well, if we make it by the end of next week, you know. So let's assume that we successfully left the jungle, right? And now we are scaling. For the purpose of this research, I went hiking once. I do not like nature very much, but it's funny that I'm using it as a metaphor for my research. I like this. I like Jack Kerouac's comment. It's time to climb that mountain. We left the jungle. We see it behind us, and as we come out of the jungle, we see the beginning of a mountain. Now, what is the main difference if you think about the mountain and the jungle? A path, right? Somebody said it. There's a path. And that means that somebody else has been there before you. I heard 3 businesses almost identical today. Why? It's very hard to be 100% innovative, right? Somebody else came up with a similar story, with a similar path, with a similar model, right? But one of the things that I want to tell you is, so Bill Olet said this, the same behavior that made you successful in the jungle can be the behavior that is going to destroy you or kill you once you start hiking up that mountain. And why? Because in the jungle, the rules are very different. But once you start hiking, the environment changes, the team changes, the dynamic change. So for this, Charlie and I tried to figure out what are some very practical tools that we can give entrepreneurs such as yourself to help you scale successfully. And I have to say, every month we add another one. So call me back in 3 months, I might have 13. At this point, I have to publish this. So I'll just go through very quickly because I only have 3 minutes left. So if you think about it, the number 1 rule in a startup is if you want to grow, do more, right? Buy more, pay more, sell more, build more, hire more, right? And it's sort of like an organic growth. But I want to tell you that this is also a very dangerous strategy, because if all you do is more without the what and the why, you might end up doing what we call naked scaling. I'll give you a second to visualize that. Okay? Naked hiking if you want to be more. So what happens is you go on the journey without tools, right? You don't even have that machete because you don't need a machete in the jungle. So these are some of the tools that we think that companies in your stage need to build in their toolkit. So when I first started working at ASB, and again, let me remind you, we were 2. And then we started hiring people. So let's say Pim was our 3rd hire, and she came and said, Loredana, what's the process for identifying a distributor? What would I say, Andrew, is the process in the jungle? Exactly, that's the answer. Like, what's a process? Exactly, right, Jai? What's a process? Why is that? Because we don't have processes set up. But as you start scaling, you can't afford to constantly say, what's the process? Because it cuts out your effectiveness, your delegation capabilities, your productivity, right? Also, I was talking to the entrepreneurs that when you're a first hire in the company, you're not really a specialist in something, right? You have to do everything. Can you afford, in our case, the first hire that the bank asked us to do was an HR director. And I said, with no offense to HR people, how multitasking do you think they are? Right? I don't know. We can't, no offense, right? If anybody's HR here, I love your benefits, I love your job. But what we're trying to say is that you need professionals. Now you need professionals, right? The Chinese company, you need to hire a professional financial analyst. You didn't need that 9 years ago, right? Same thing happens with, let's say, capitalization. Capitalization is, if you want, a more professional way about raising funds, which you're going through right now. Segmentation. Segmentation allows you now to have multiple customers, because initially you only had 1 customer and your main purpose was not to kill that customer. But now that you're successful, the other customer says, well, I'm also interested in this. It's not 100% what I want, but I kind of like it, right? Culturalization. Cultural KPIs, people. when you move from the jungle to the mountain, and people start talking about processes, to somebody from the jungle, that sounds like a curse. What do you mean processes? That's a bad word in a startup, right? So cultural KPIs are important. And because they cut me off, they think that I cannot speak without my slides. I want you also to think about the last stage. Your last stage is going to be sailing. You're going to become successful and build up a company that is big, it's sustainable. You're going to have the opportunity to look at the horizon 360 and say, I see a threat, I see an opportunity, but my tank is full, and I have a whole army of people to help me out. But if you think about it, you also guarantee that you're going to be slower, right? A little bit more rigid, because if Tim now is running a gigantic ship, he cannot move as fast as AJ if he's still in the jungle, all right? So this is going to be your journey. You started in the jungle. Some of you made it. Some of you didn't. You're hiking up that mountain. Bring some tools with you, and I hope to see you all in the ocean. Good luck again. Congratulations. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.